Hello, everyone. So people are still coming in, so I'm gonna give it another 30 or so seconds before I start my very quick presentation. After which we will have our keynote speaker, and we can all head over to our judging rooms. Um, but yes, as some preliminary statements, I just want to say thank you all so much for attending. Thank you to all the participants for all their hard work and bringing their friends and family in to join. Um, Now, of course, this is a little bit early for some of the people on here on the Pacific side, but that's okay because the the world runs on Eastern time apparently. This is good times. All right, good. I'm seeing smiles on everyone's faces, so I'm happy. All right, with 40 people in, I think it's very safe to begin. So hello once again. Welcome everyone to our culminating event for the Big Data Challenge, the Big Data Day. Now this year, as you know, COVID-19 has effectively halted the world in its tracks, and we're slowly starting to recover. And our challenge and our Big Data Day are no exception to that. In spite of not being able to, host these large events, we are doing everything entirely online this year. And I'm very happy to say that things have thus far been a pretty decent success, pretty happy success. Our big data challenge broke internal records, and we hope to continue that growth going forward. Um, and our big day today will be, well, we'll see how it goes. But first, I'd like to hand the presentation off to a very special recorded greeting from the Prime Minister's office. So I will do that right now.
Hello everyone, bonjour à tous, and happy Big Data Day. For starters, I want to say congratulations to all the finalists. You've worked hard to get here, and you should be proud of the work you've done and the presentations you've put forward. La pandémie de la COVID-19 est un défi mondial qui nécessite une importante coopération entre les différents secteurs, les gouvernements et les pays. Et une prise de décision basée sur les données doit aussi être au cœur de nos efforts. Now, more than ever, we need our brightest minds working together, analyzing the data, and coming up with new ideas. Because we know that the policies we develop and the decisions we make as a government must be based on science, data, and facts if we want them to be effective. And thanks to this year's Big Data Challenge, you've already started looking at the different aspects of the COVID-19 crisis, especially those related to personal and public health decisions. From dissemination of public health policies to vaccination coverage, you've used big data to analyze different aspects of the pandemic. And by better understanding those aspects, we will be able to make informed decisions that will have better outcomes for people in Canada and right around the world. So to all the finalists and to everyone who participated in this challenge, congratulations and thank you for your contributions to the fight against COVID-19. Remember, big ideas lead to big discoveries. So keep going. Encore une fois, merci et félicitations à tous les finalistes.
Oops. All right. That was it's always very validating to hear that your hard work was recognized by the Prime Minister of our nation, right? So always happy to see that, and very thankful to the Prime Minister's office for taking the time to record that message and take a look at the presentations and work that was done. So with that, I want to give a big thank you to all of our sponsors and partners from Roche, SAS, Canadian Science Publishing, Digital Science Canada, Altmetric Overly, as well as our observers. For example, those from Health Canada, those from TBI Finder and Vox Neuro. As well, I would like to give a huge thank you to the organizing team, without whom none of this would be possible. Once again, we faced a lot of challenges in bringing this new format, so I would like to give my sincere thanks to Elvira, Fike, Rita, Lydia, and of course the founder and current president of STEM Fellowship, Dr. Sasha Milkovich. And of course, that's all at the student level. I would also like to give a huge thanks to all of our panelists who took the time out of their day to give a rousing discussion today at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, which I thoroughly recommend that all of you go to. To our judges who took effectively 3 hours out of their day just to help facilitate this event, as well as really get ready to grill all of our participants, all of our finalists. And of course, to the reviewers who helped select all 15 finalists. It was a tough deliberation, but I think it worked well to filter out the best of the best. And of course, I would like to thank each and every single one of our finalists, our teams, our mentors, and every single participant who didn't make the cut to make this event possible. Now, I want to give a quick rundown of the schedule because I promised my keynote speaker that I'll just take 5 minutes and I'm going slightly over. So from right now until 12:30, we will have our welcome presentation, our keynote, which you are currently a part of. From 12:30 to 2 p.m., we will have the judging of all finalist teams. Now, this will be split into 3 rooms. So with, excuse me, 5 finalist teams in each room. And each of these teams will have 18 minutes to be asked and to answer the questions from each of the judges. Following this, we'll have our panel discussion where we will have representatives from Health Canada, from Roche, from One Qubit, as well as a few other large organizations like Digital Science Publishing to discuss the role of big data in public and personal health decisions, especially during these trying times. And finally, after some deliberation, we will be announcing our winners at 2:45 within the same Google Meet room as a panel discussion. And with that, that is all I have to say. Again, once again, a big thank you. And I would like to hand off the presentation to our keynote speaker, Mohit. If you could begin sharing and talking now, and I will give you the figurative stage.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well today. I'm just going to share my screen here. I've never done this before, so please bear with me. Okay, there we go. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Are we good? Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Mohit Sodhi, and I've been asked to be the keynote speaker for this incredible event, although I do admit it's a little nerve-wracking having to follow up Prime Minister, Mr. Justin Trudeau, but I'll do my best. So yeah, Big Data Day 2020. Before I get started, I actually just want to take the time to remember my very, very good friend, Mohammed Asadi Lari, and his sister Zainab Asadi Lari, who unfortunately passed away during the Ukraine flight from Canada earlier this year. He was an incredible friend, incredible mentor. I always wanted to be just like him. He was an inspiration to us all, and as people may know, he was one of the co-founders of STEM Fellowship. So I think it's very important that we take this time to remember him and his sister. Unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to get to know his sister very well, but if she's anything like her older brother, she was an amazing person. So I just wanted to take the time to do that. So who am I? As I mentioned, my name is Mohit Sodhi. I did all my degrees at UBC. So my bachelor's, my master's, and I'm a current med student at UBC. In 2016, I also graduated the JIBC. For those of you who don't know that, it's the Justice Institute of British Columbia. So that's where all the professionals, so police officers, paramedics, things like that, where they all go to get trained and go to school. I'm also a research associate in the Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Sciences at UBC. I'm also the chairman and co-founder of the One Up for Tot Society. It's a local charity that helps a lot of underfunded schools in the Lower Mainland. I'm also quite familiar with STEM Fellowship, as I've held 5 positions within the organization before. I'm currently the advisor to the steering committee, as well as the deputy editor-in-chief of the STEM Fellowship Journal, something that a lot of you may know or have published in. Just a little bit about me. I love sports, NFL, NBA, NHL. I love exercising, and I love the Avengers. It's a little tough right now with all this stuff going on with lack of sports and things like that, but hopefully we can safely resume sports soon. So I'm going to try to keep this presentation the narcissism level to a minimum. And as I go through this, I'm hoping that with my experience and my journey, I'm able to impart some knowledge and some advice on the people attending here today. So I'm not entirely too sure in terms of the age bracket. I believe our undergraduate level. But I'll go through each stage of my journey and highlight some things which I regret, because who doesn't love highlighting their regrets? And hopefully you guys can use that to your advantage to help further your own career. So here's just some fun pictures of things that I've done, some charity events, my paramedic stuff, my master's thesis defense. So yeah. So in terms of my inspiration for medicine, I don't tell this to a lot of people, but I have an incredible sister who's 22 years old, and she's my main inspiration in life and in particular with medicine. She is a quadriplegic with cerebral palsy. And she's, as you can see, she's in a wheelchair. She's also a huge Canucks fan. And as a brother growing up with a sister with disabilities, it has opened my eyes to a whole other world that I never thought I would have been able to experience otherwise. And from a young age, I've seen her go through all these progressions of different surgeries, mental health issues. She also has severe autism spectrum disorder. And dealing with all these different professionals from all sorts of realms. So physiotherapists, occupational therapists, surgeons, family doctors, neurologists, things like that. I still continue that to this day. But I remember in grade 5 during the science fair, she was my guinea pig on one of my projects. It was on cerebral neuroplasticity. So I did a few exercises and things with her. And ever since I was in a young age, I always wanted to do something for her and for people like her. So from a young age, she was always my inspiration. So as I mentioned, I'm going to go through each and individual aspect of my life, and I'll highlight some of my regrets. So I went to St. John's School, that's in Vancouver. I graduated with an IB diploma. We were actually the guinea pigs of the group because we're the first class at the school to graduate with IB. So that was quite interesting. So some of my extracurriculars during high school was the debate team, Model United Nations, Duke of Edinburgh, the golf club, badminton, MMA. That was really cool, right? All these cool different extracurriculars. And in terms of my regrets, I would have to say the first one, I have a lot of regrets from high school. The first one was that I felt like I was a bit of a quitter. So in terms of the debate team or public speaking, I would go on, I would do quite well. I won the regional debate competition or the public speaking competition. And then I'd be like, okay, I did my job, that's good enough. And then I would stop. I wouldn't continue through all of high school. Same thing with Model United Nations. I think it was in grade 8. I think I got top 3 for the Model United Nations. I'd go there, quit. That was good enough for me. Same thing with Duke of Edinburgh. I got the silver medal, but I could have gotten the gold, but I didn't do that. So I think that's one thing that I really regret. And I guess that's something that you can carry on for the rest of your life. You never want to regret quitting something because you never know if you're going to get really, really, really good at something. And practice makes perfect, right? So that early stop, I feel like that kind of hindered my progression in other aspects of my life. And I wish I could change that. The second thing was that in grade 12, when applying for universities and things like that, I didn't apply for any scholarships. I got scholarships that were automatically given, but I didn't actually seek out to apply to scholarships. I was very lucky. My parents offered to pay for my undergraduate education. So I just, at the time, I just felt like, I don't need to apply for scholarships. Like, why do I need to do this, right? That was very wrong. I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't have done that. Because as you get older, you start to understand how awards get awards get awards. So I know there's many people in STEM fellowship who have Schulich scholarships or Loran scholarships or these big scholarships and things like that. But that will help them in their university career get additional awards because it just adds things to your resume. So I highly, highly recommend everyone, whatever stage of life you're at right now, go look at awards. If you go to UBC, I know UBC has a database, like a registry for all the awards and the due dates and all those kind of things. So I highly recommend applying for scholarships, or even if they're not scholarships, just awards in general. I highly recommend doing that because it'll really, really help you, as your career progresses. And my third regret was actually in grade 12 as well, where I didn't get involved in research. So I was attending one of my sister's neurology appointments, and I was talking to her neurologist, and she seemed quite impressed by me. And she had actually offered me a research position with her on a project. And I thought at that time, you know what, I think I really want to focus on my studies in university going in. I'm not sure if I'm going to have time for all this other stuff. Like, I don't know if it's going to be worth it or not. Till this day, I sincerely regret not taking her up on that offer, just because, that's such a great opportunity that I passed up. And I think that that's, one thing that I encourage. Like, I know quite a few people who started, doing research in high school and very, very early in their undergraduate education. And it's invaluable because at a younger age, you can kind of see what areas of research or what areas of medicine interest you. So I think that that's something that I really wish I had done. So in terms of my undergraduate degree, I did the BSc in behavioral neuroscience. I did a bit of rat lab work. I worked as a physiotherapy assistant for kids like my sister who have different types of disabilities. I also worked as a behavioral interventionist for kids with autism. I also was part of the UBC community, Project PAS, which fundraises for the Parkinson's and Alzheimer's Society, the Psychology Students Association, as well as my own charity, Why Not for Tots. So just a little funny story about the rat lab work. That was a part of one of the statistics courses I had to take, and we each had to join in a separate lab. And honestly, like basic science, I realized I could not do it. I could not deal with rats. It was just not for me. So kudos to any of you and all of you who go out to pursue the basic sciences. It is not an easy job. It is very, very difficult, and I'm not very good with rats. So kudos to you. I'm very impressed if you're able to do that. So in terms of my regrets, kind of goes off the high school thing where I didn't get involved with more intensive research earlier. So like I mentioned, just that my only research experience in my entire undergraduate in 4 years was that rat lab work, which was not for more than 2 months. So I highly recommend getting into research from a young age, from your first year. I wouldn't even say, second, third year, whatever. I'll say from your first year, I'll try to, get in to do something. And, you may start off having to do, simple tasks, like help, washing beakers or doing things like that. But I mean, as time goes on, you'll be able to advance within that lab if you enjoy that particular lab. And that's why things like STEM Fellowship Journal are so important. I'll do a little plug in here, but I mean, the STEM Fellowship Journal, I always tell people that had I known about the STEM Fellowship Journal or journals like that when I was your age, when I was in my undergraduate degree, like I would have killed for an opportunity like that, like to get published in like a nationally recognized journal at such a young age. That would have been so great. So I highly recommend all of you, if you haven't published, your own manuscript in our journal, I would highly recommend submitting it. We have a lot of great editors. We have some professionals who are peer reviewers. So it would be great to see more submissions and things like that from you. And also presenting at conferences. So just getting the ability to talk about your research and getting comfortable about talking about your research. Even Big Data Day, like that's huge. It'll be so beneficial for you as your career goes on to be able to be comfortable talking about your research and your passion and things like that, and stand up to questions as well. Because people are always going to be poking holes in your research. I mean, that's just what science is. Am I not right? We have to find where we can improve ourselves and where we can find more things to support evidence on different things. And that happens with the peer review and with the scientific community appraising your work and things like that. So that's incredibly valuable. My second regret was I didn't get involved in the UBC community sooner. So the UBC PAS and the UBC say, I started that, like I joined those in my third year. So whether it's the UBC community or whichever university you're from, I highly recommend starting to join the community at a younger age. I know a lot of clubs, whether it's UBC or anywhere else, they all have, first year rep positions. So I recommend, if you're in first year, if you're going into university, I highly recommend to, start joining a club that you might find interesting. I mean, there's a club for everything. Like there's, at least at UBC, I mean, there's 200 or 300 clubs at least. So you'll definitely find something that interests you. And it doesn't even have to be science related. It could be the underwater basket weaving club. I don't care. Like it's just something that interests you and gets you involved with that community a lot sooner. So in terms of my master's degree now, so I did my thesis. It was on the risk of acute angle closure glaucoma with tryptan use. So acute angle closure glaucoma is an ophthalmic emergency. Basically, there's an acute rise in the eye pressure, and triptans are a drug that is used to treat migraines when things like Advil doesn't work. So my research area is pharmacoepidemiology and drug safety. So in particular, it is big data. We do use databases of anywhere from 6 to 10 plus million patients, which usually come from the USA, although we have used some databases from Canada. And they're all case control studies. So that's a certain type of epidemiologic study or observational study. Other types include cohort studies, cross-sectional studies, retrospective, prospective, case control cohort studies or whatever. Yeah, so in terms of my extracurriculars, I still maintained extracurriculars during my master's degree. So my first one was, like my charity One for Tots. I continued as a behavioral interventionist and pediatric physiotherapy assistant. That's when I joined STEM Fellowship. I joined STEM Fellowship in, I want to say 2018, end of 2018, I believe, where I joined as the science communication director. So the person who helped coordinate the STEM Fellowship Journal and things like that. And I also continued my work with the UBC Psychology Students Association. So I think in terms of, my regrets, actually, before I talk about my regrets, my master's degree, the reason I decided to pursue a master's degree was because I didn't have any research experience whatsoever. I didn't even know what I liked. So doing this was a bit of a risk because I wasn't sure if I would like this area of research. So I really lucked out. I found an amazing supervisor. He's hilarious. We text each other on the daily basis. That's a huge thing that if you do decide to pursue a graduate degree of any kind, is having a real connection with your supervisor and making sure that they have time for you and that, there's a strong relationship. So this was I wasn't sure if I wanted to go down the medicine road in terms of being a clinician, or if I wasn't sure if I wanted to do a research, kind of career. So that's why I decided to do a master's degree. It took a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but I mean, all's well that ends well. But I think that, doing a master's degree gives you enough time to kind of realize if you want to continue with research or if you want to, go into medicine or if you want to do both. Yeah, so in terms of my regrets, I personally feel like I got the most out of my master's as I possibly could have. If I had to pick a regret, I would have to say that I didn't really present my research that much. I think in total, I presented at one conference. I did an oral presentation. And I'll talk about that paper in a little bit. But I really encourage you to go out and present a lot. Like I attended maybe 4 or 5 conferences, but that was mostly for the free food. No, I'm kidding. I saw a lot of great presentations and things like that, but I really wish I had taken the opportunity to present more. So in terms of my charitable work, as I mentioned, Why Not for Tots? We've helped a whole bunch of different schools and things like that across the Lower Mainland. Over $181,000 donated. So we have an incredible team. We have an incredible, reach in terms of, schools and connections and things like that. So that's been great. Yeah, so we also had the opportunity to get featured in a lot of local and national media, including we've been on TV, we've been on radio, we've been on the internet. So it's just been a great experience learning how to communicate with all sorts of different people. Because when you're in your UBC bubble, your university bubble, you kind of end up learning how to talk really well to your friends, colleagues, supervisors, physicians, whatever it may be. But when you do something like public relations, and when you start talking to journalists and things like that, you really start to get the hang of how to deal with people from all sorts of different walks of life. And then when because we've been lucky and gotten quite a bit of media attention, that in turn gets a lot more schools recognizing us and reaching out to us for help, as well as on the donor side, where donors see us and they want to reach out to help out as much as they can. So now I'll talk a little bit about my research. I hope I'm okay on time. Yeah, I think we've got a bit of time. So like I mentioned, it's all pharmacoepidemiologic stuff. These are some screenshots of some of my studies, or one of my recent studies was featured in the New York Times, which was a dream come true for me. We also have been doing quite a bit of stuff for COVID-19 as well. We've published 3 papers on COVID-19 so far, which has been quite exciting. We helped identify potential treatment for COVID-19. But yeah, so like I mentioned, it's all pharmacoepidemiologic research. So basically, the risk of blank disease with blank drug use. And it's all we look into drugs that are the most commonly prescribed in the world. And these include things like antidepressants, antibiotics, things like that, which many people have had. So I'll give you a bit of an example of my research. So we published a paper in Neurology in 2017. It was called the Oral Fluoroquinolones and Risk of Secondary Pseudotumor Cerebri Syndrome. It's a bit of a mouthful. So fluoroquinolones are they're antibiotics. So things like moxifloxacin, things that I'm sure 99% of you have received over the course of your lifetime. I think there's in 2014 or 2012, I can't remember the year, there's over 120 some odd million prescriptions of this drug in the US alone. So it's a very, very commonly prescribed drug. And secondary pseudotumor cerebri syndrome, or PTCS, is a neuro-ophthalmological condition, which is characterized by an increase in the intracranial pressure, or ICP. So basically, the brain starts to swell a bit because of fluid retention and things like that. And this swelling can actually lead to compression of the optic nerve. So basically, the nerve that helps you see. And it can actually lead to vision loss in one or both eyes if it's not treated right away. So fluoroquinolones have a host of central nervous system and peripheral nervous system related side effects. As you can see on the previous slide here, this was one of the other papers that we published, was the risk of carpal tunnel syndrome, which is a neurological, peripheral nervous system condition. And no one at this time had quantified the risk of pseudotumor cerebri syndrome with fluoroquinolone use. So we used a cohort of over 6 million patients from the USA, and we found that there's a 5 to 6 times increase in the risk of pseudotumor with fluoroquinolone use. And we did our due diligence. We made sure to adjust for things like age, sex, sleep apnea, obesity, isotretinoin, estradiol, and corticosteroids. Those are all confounders, or they're risk factors for pseudotumor cerebri syndrome or fluoroquinolones. So given the incidence of 1 to 2 out of 10,000 for pseudotumor cerebri syndrome, and with our newfound increased risk of 10 out of 10,000, and we use a population attributable risk calculation, or PAR. So we actually found that about 2,000 out of 6,000 cases of PTCS, so about 1/3 of PTCS cases in the USA, are due to fluoroquinolones. So the exciting part of this paper, at least I found, was the mechanism behind all this. So the fact that fluoroquinolones are excitotoxic. So they're GABA A antagonists, or they're glutamate agonists. So they increase excitation neurologically. So it's been shown that fluoroquinolones can actually cause glutamate receptor upregulation. So increased excitatory neurotransmission has been shown to cause intracranial hypertension. So when you drive the number of excitatory receptors up, that has shown to cause swelling or the intracranial hypertension. And antagonizing these same glutamate receptors can actually decrease the brain tissue water content. So that was some of the evidence that we found, and in this particular paper, I talked about on the American Academy of Neurology podcast, which was released in 2017, and that was quite an interesting experience as well. So over the course of my talk so far, I've been talking about the value of getting involved early and taking advantage of these opportunities. So I'll just kind of highlight that again. So when you start early, you end up meeting people with similar interests as you at a younger age. So when you join that club that you find really interesting, in your first year, you get to make a group of friends who share that similar interest. And then from that age, you can start developing a friend group. And who knows, you guys might end up being friends till you're, however old or whatever, right? And you can build those connections with people with similar interests. Yeah, the second thing is to network. When you join a lab at a young age, or if you attend a conference or something like that at a younger age, there's just increased opportunity for you to connect with people who are at the tops of their fields. And if that's a field that you're interested in, that could be very, very valuable to you. I mean, hey, it could be very valuable to them as well. So I think that, just starting early, that really helps you get that ability to make these connections. And, the world is run by people. So when you're able to network with different people of all walks of life, and especially in people in the field that you want to go into, I think it's very important that you form a solid connection and maybe form a relationship with those people where you can advance your own career and help them along the way as well. The third thing is that it helps hone your interests. So like I mentioned, I found out in my third year that I was not a big fan of rat lab work. If I had done it earlier, I would have known to avoid that when that course came around, and I would have avoided a rat lab altogether. So you can find what interests you at a younger age, and you can start, developing your craft per se, if you know what I mean. So if you start younger, then you'll end up finding out what you enjoy, and then you can really start to dive into what you like, and you start to advance your career in that particular area. The fourth thing is that it's fun. I mean, in terms of start joining a club, like if you join a hockey club or you join an NFL club or whatever club, it's fun. It gives you a chance to get away from school if that's the kind of club that you joined, and just a chance to socialize and connect, and just go and have a good time with people. I mean, who doesn't like fun? And the fifth thing is, I mean, who are we kidding? It will help your CV. So the more involved you can get, the stronger relationships you build with supervisors, with people like that, the better your reference letters are going to be, the better your CV is going to be for whatever kind of journey you want to pursue later on in life. So I've got some last minute advice. One thing that I always tell people is do something that you love. Because what's the saying? If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. I cannot stress that enough. I'm the kind of person that if I don't like what I'm doing, I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to procrastinate and put it off. So you really, really have to do something that you truly, truly enjoy. Otherwise, you're not going to have fun. B, you're not going to really advance much in it, because you're just going to give up pretty easily. The second thing is that support others and seek support. So it's okay to ask for help from other people, whether it's your supervisors, whether it's friends, colleagues, parents, significant other, it doesn't matter, but you need to be able to feel comfortable with yourself that you can go out and ask for help, and also support others as well, especially people along your journey, the same, your undergraduate friends and things like that, because they're probably going through a lot of the same things that you are. So it's important that you stick together. And one thing that another med student told me was that it's very possible to uplift someone else without putting yourself back as well. So it's possible for you to advance and help someone else advance at the same time. So I think that's very, very important. And the third thing is that it's okay to not know everything. So when I worked as an event paramedic, I saw so many times where, people who are young and hungry, they thought that, I know everything about the body. I know how to treat this person. I know how to treat that person, but then ended up not knowing anything. So it's okay to admit when you don't know something, especially in an area like medicine, where sometimes someone's life is in your hands. If you don't know how to do something, just ask, because there's always people around who can help. So it's important to know what you don't know. And I can't stress that enough, because you don't want to end up, putting someone's life at risk, or you don't want to end up, having some sort of adverse event occurring because your ego was too high to admit that you didn't know what you were doing. And the fourth thing is very critical as well. Be confident, fake it till you make it. I remember when I saw my first patient, I was terrified. In my head, I was going through all the protocols, and it was a simple ankle sprain or something like that. So a guy had fell, and it was very, very nerve-wracking for me, because I'm just like, oh my God, like, am I doing this right? Did I check for this? Did I check for that? But over time, once you start to meet more patients, you start being able to become more confident in yourself. Even if you had no idea what you were doing, and you were asking people for help and things like that, as you build that experience, you'll really be able to become more confident, and that shows in your patient rapport. That shows in a whole bunch of different things. And I mean, I'm giving the example of a clinical example, but I mean, this applies to everything, whether it's your research, whether it's your personal life, social life, academics. You really have to be able to trust yourself and be confident. And even if you aren't at first, fake it till you make it. Just continue to do your best, and seek help where you need it, and just keep going forward. So that kind of concludes my presentation. If anyone, Anish, I don't know how we're doing questions. If people are messaging, or I left my email there. If anyone has any questions to ask me about my research, or if you just want to have someone to talk to about something, feel free to go ahead.
Sure. So unfortunately, we are over time, and the judging will begin effectively now. So we will have to truncate this without any questions. Mohit, thank you again so much for speaking. And to everyone here, feel free to join your judging rooms, and I'll see you there. All right. Bye, everyone.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.